Bangladesh is seeing a surge in violence against the minority groups, Hindus particularly, following the fall of the Sheikh Hasina government. After a series of attacks on Bangladeshi minority groups, now Durga Puja in Bangladesh is under attack. There are several Muslim bodies that have denied permission to organize Durga Puja by Hindu communities. Organizing communities have been asking to maintain silence during namaz offerings as well. Some of the committees are even asked to pay 5 lakh rupees each as Jizya or a tax for organizing and holding Durga Puja pandals. Now, while there are several organizing committees that have received threat letters as well, the Muslim bodies are restricting Durga Puja. Multiple incidents of idol vandalism and temple desecration have also been reported. There are 3 temples that have been desecrated, 16 idols of the Hindu deities that have been vandalized as well. Yunus government is tight-lipped about these incidents, and the Bangladeshi Foreign Affairs advisor has not acknowledged the vandalism instances. He has said that worshippers who want to hold Durga Puja have the opportunity to do so. As attacks continue unabated, who will raise the voice for the Bangladeshi Hindus is the question. Let's start off our conversation. Ambassador Veena Sikri on the telecast with me, and let's hear it from you, Ambassador Sikri, about this looming threat on Hindus. And this is yet another example where the Durga Puja celebrations are subdued because there are threats that are being issued against committees for organizing these pandals.
Yes, it is a very worrisome situation because the Hindu minority community in Bangladesh is extremely worried about how they are going to celebrate Durga Puja. In Bangladesh, they would be observing it from October 9th to October 13th, the dates, and they still are not very sure or very clear whether they will be able to put up their pandals in the public spaces and whether they will be able to have some modicum of celebrations. In fact, there have been in individual organizations, like there is this group called the Islami Chhatra group, which is opposing, saying why should you allow Durga Puja celebration, saying it's no use because they are occupying public land and they are environmentally polluting our rivers and so on. And a lady, a professor from a well-known university in Dhaka, who objected to this kind of opposition to Durga Puja, saying that the Muslim people are celebrating Ramzan and all their festivals, so certainly the Hindu minority should be allowed to celebrate theirs. But she was forced to leave her job in the university. That was a very shocking incident of a direct case where a professor was asked to leave her job for having said something in favor of continuing the Durga Puja celebrations. There is, as you said, some reports of the tax having been imposed. And as the date comes close for the pandals to open on October 9th, the feeling of worry is gathering further strength. We do know that when Professor Muhammad Yunus was in New York last week, there were actually black flag demonstrations against him outside the UN, and there were big banners carried along the Hudson River, protesting against the atrocities on the Hindu and other religious minorities and asking for the safety of these groups. So it is clear to say that the worry is there, the concerns are very much there, because they are in groups who are raising these concerns within Bangladesh. And the interim government, although Professor Muhammad Yunus has visited Dhakeshwari several weeks ago, but there are no direct steps from the interim government to ensure that the celebrations of Durga Puja will go ahead peacefully and joyfully.
Okay.
So this is what to see what will happen.
Okay, all right. Major General Jizya Dwivedi, when there are these strong comments and the remarks made by the United States Religious Freedom Council that has been built in targeting India and pulling India over the alleged religious atrocities and threat to the religious minorities in our country, I don't see any report of the sort that has castigated Bangladesh government for religious freedoms that at this point of time are curtailed very, very evidently. Why is that so?
Well, Megha, the point is that this situation does not come as a surprise. If you go back in point in time, and I had the privilege and honor to fight this war in Bangladesh in 1971, the point is at that time too, the atrocities against the Hindus, I think, were beyond description. During the genocide by the Pakistan army, where 3 million Bangladeshis were murdered and about 300,000 women were violated, majority, I would say majority again, were the Hindus. So, at the time when Bangladesh was created, the Hindu population was over 20%, and today it is about 8%. So therefore, Hindus have been constantly marginalized, they have been abused, they have been under threat. The current situation had to come this way. At least semblance of secularism was there when Sheikh Hasina government was there. After the government was changed, there was a coup on 5th August, this situation was well on the cards. I think we have to read this on the wall, because the elements who are now calling the shots in Bangladesh are BNP, Bangladesh National Party, Jamaitis, who are radical elements, and therefore the Hindus have to suffer. The point you are raised is why the world community is quiet. The world community was quiet even in 1971. In fact, there is a very good book by Gary Pass in 2014, written in 2014, the Black Telegraph, that describes the atrocity on Hindus by the Bangladeshi, Indian Bangladesh, by the Pakistan army. And West always has a double standard. They would only talk about human rights when it suits them and when it doesn't suit them. Who is Muhammad Yunus? He is a puppet in the hands of the Pakistan army, and he is a puppet in the hands of the Americans. So therefore, they will not speak against this issue. But the point is, who will take the call? I think India has to take the call. We have to act tough, because who will protect the Hindus?
Right.
Otherwise, we have more influx. And this is the time, as a diplomatic, political measures, we need to tell very clearly to Bangladesh, this needs to stop. Otherwise, there will be a response. And that response will not be in the interest of Bangladesh. Begum.
Okay. Pathikrit, coming to you, and again the question that has been raised by the United States Commission in International Religious Freedom, and talking about how India must be designated as a country of particular concern. Why is there no mention of Bangladesh? Why is there no mention of Pakistan and Afghanistan?
So, Megha, first and foremost, United States Commission for International Religious Freedom, actually the present lot is filled by the leftist and the Islamists, and we should not expect any report from them which is favorable to India. They have a clear-cut agenda, and that's how the American foreign policy have always worked, which is valid. One hand will shake hands with you, will say they are your great friends. Other side of the same establishment will do exactly what USCIRF is doing, and that is also part of the policy. It's not that that organization is doing something opposite to what the stand of the US government is. Now the issue is this. It's very rightly mentioned by General Dwivedi also that it's not for the first time. It has happened for so many years, so many decades. And I'm also a Bengali, so I know the kind of atrocities that used to happen. See, what they're doing right now is this. They are making it brazen, which means we will exactly do this way, stop us if you can. The United Nations will not do anything. The US will not do anything. You don't expect any other forum actually to do anything. Of course, the onus is on us. The question is, what is our stand? They look up to India. Many of those minorities in the South Asia, they look up to India. What is our stand? I would like to know. I am a very strong supporter of the present government of India. I have always supported and spoken in their favor in most of the occasions. But on this issue, I just want to know: do we have a policy in place? Or is it just we give certain formal statements that okay, you can't change the neighbors. We should wait and watch. Wait and watch is not working anymore. There has to be some stand. It's like we can have many debates. I am not disrespecting the debates, but there has to be certain actions. The reason being, with all due respect, I'm speaking from my heart as a very ordinary Indian. The reason is this: when we say that we are voice of the global south, when we say that we are on the path of becoming a Vishwa Guru, on occasions like this, there has to be certain things that we have to do which is demonstrable. I'm not saying the government of India is not doing anything. I am not speaking against the government of India. All I'm saying is this, that whatever has been done, maybe it's not working. And we have to, we can't keep on waiting for the regime to change someday and then things will be better. Because in the Sheikh Hasina government also things were not absolutely nice. There was something called the Vested Property Act which was enacted in the 1970s, which made it very difficult for any Hindu to sell properties if they want to shift to any other country. There's a book by Richard Mencken called A Quiet Place of Ethnic Cleansing, which shows what is happening. My last point, what the Bangladeshi Jamaatis are doing right now is called systematic impoverishment. They are forcing the Hindus to leave jobs. They are making it difficult for them to do business. What you see in Durga Puja is only symptomatic. Now they are making it clear, unless you convert, we will not allow you to live a normal life. Tell me, in that kind of a situation, what should India do? My own humble suggestion, we should have a CAA 2.0 and allow those who want to come, not everybody, those who want to come, we should allow them formally to come in. A Citizenship Amendment Act 2.0 is necessary. I am not saying we should go for a war with Bangladesh. I am not saying those things. But please have a provision that those who are being persecuted on a daily basis, something is done about them, because we can't, our wait for a better day, our patience is actually harming the lives of many, who look up to India, because we say that we are the biggest economy in South Asia. We have an expectation from our government.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Pratim, what's your opinion? Particularly, there seems to be no response whatsoever. There is no strong statement that has been given out by the Yunus government. In fact, there has been action that has been taken, that you must restrict the Durga Puja celebrations. There needs to be silence that needs to be observed during the time of namaz that takes place 5 times a day on a daily basis in the country of Bangladesh.
There are two sides of it. On the one hand, Yunus definitely wants to show better care of minority. That is one area he has been focusing on, because he knows the danger that whatever his friends in the UN and whosoever, they cannot protect for very long, because India also has a lot of power and the diplomatic power. So if you look at it, say this year 84,000 employees or workers of social welfare and women and child welfare, they have been deployed on 8-hour shifts to protect the pujas. But this is one side of the story. So that way the police is activated, this is one side of the story if you look at it administratively. On the other hand, if you look at it on more administrative situation, police is not acting. It is unlikely that they would act in next 2 years, because their morale is completely broken. The Ansar force, which is basically a civic volunteer force kind of that looks after the villages, law and order in villages, is broken or down. So the law and order situation is abysmal. On the other hand, if you look at it politically, Yunus is not an elected government. He is brought in there to make an illegitimate government earn some legitimacy. And in this whole stuff, he is ideally, a caretaker government should come, hand over the power to organize election, hand over the power to an elected government. The drafting of constitution or whatever you talk about should be the job of the parliament, an elected parliament or a constituent assembly, whatever you call it. But Yunus will do that. And you see, you don't know who is in power in Bangladesh. The army chief said that he is giving 1.5 years to the Yunus administration, interim government. At the same time, you see the interim government is saying that we will decide how long we will stay. So you just don't know. And in this melee, because if they are to do the election, then obviously BNP will come. Now, what is happening is not merely Jamaat, or we love to say Jamaat, but there are a lot of sort of unrecognized, like Hifazat kind of unrecognized Islamic forces. So these forces are joining hands and they are trying to gain as much ground in this time. The aspiration is that they will come as the major political force. They would love to win the next election.
Right.
So that's the kind of aspiration they have. So we are seeing a complete conflict here. That is where the problem is.
Okay. All right. Ambassador Veena Sikri, there has another significant development that is taking place in the last couple of days, where the Bangladeshi envoys from several countries, including from India, have been recalled by the Bangladeshi government. Now, in wake of there is an establishment that has completely taken over, and Sheikh Hasina is in exile. She is currently located in India in an undisclosed place, given protection on a refugee status. How do we tackle this situation when the government of Bangladesh itself is not wanting to do anything for the Hindu minority community?
No, it is a very worrisome situation. Yes, you're right that many ambassadors have been recalled, including the Bangladesh ambassador in New Delhi. But I think much more than that, we have to see what are the policies of this new government. I think government of India, to put it quite correctly, it has taken up this matter at the highest level. I do not know of any other government in the last 70 years who have spoken so directly about the concerns of the religious minorities in Bangladesh. And our Prime Minister not only put it in the original message to President Mohammed Yunus, he spoke from the ramparts of Red Fort on 15th August, and when he spoke to President Joe Biden on a bilateral telephone conversation, he raised this issue, indicating quite clearly the high priority that we attach to religious freedom in Bangladesh, and we want this to continue. And of course, we've had lip service from the interim government, but as has just been pointed out, it doesn't seem very likely that any kind of protection will be available for the Pandal, so we can be rightly speaking very worried. But then, talking about the view of the Hindu minorities in Bangladesh, I've seen that this time they have taken a very bold stand, and they have already held 2 demonstrations in Dhaka and other places, saying that they want to stay on and they want to have their rights as citizens of Bangladesh. They want their rights to protect their property and their immovable and movable assets. So this time the Hindu community and other religious minorities have come together to take this strong stand and ask for their rights. And I think it is up to the government now, and of course everybody is watching very carefully, and the forthcoming Durga Puja celebration next week is a litmus test of how this government is going to handle the rights of the minorities.
Okay.
And we hope that we are not going to have any untoward incidents. But I think we have to support the willingness and the keenness of the minorities to stay on and protect their rights. Even in Khagrachari, against the Buddhist minority, there were strong disruptions recently. People's homes were burned, their businesses were brought down, but they've taken out strong positions as well, demanding for their rights. And the group, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Okyo Jod, the collective group, is also fighting for these rights. We do know there are a lot of problems, but unless they fight for the rights, it won't happen. And previously, for example, when General Ziaur Rahman came, at some point the Hindu minorities were so discouraged, they didn't even put up the pandals. But this time they are being very strong, saying, no, we're going to put up the pandals and we're going to insist that our rights are preserved, and let us see what happens. Although the opposition is very strong and these individual groups are coming up out of nowhere and saying, why should anybody observe functions like Durga Puja, religious functions like Durga Puja?
Okay.
Because if we don't have the minorities in Bangladesh, it becomes an Islamic state.
Okay. Major General Dwivedi, again the very same question. When you are talking about your rights, you are fighting for them, you are holding protests, you are seeking response from the government and international community, but at a time when the government itself is reluctant to take any action, and not just reluctant to take any action, but imposing such stringent rules where you are being restricted to hold Durga Pujas for some pretext or the other, how are your voices going to be heard? There have been several times in the past recently that India has raised protest, raised concern with the Bangladeshi interim chief as well, the interim advisor, but to what avail?
Well, Megha, we need to be realistic and not be in a very wishful thinking mode. First and foremost, Bangladesh is going to be in chaos for coming years, and that's the writing on the wall. Secondly, it's going to slip, gradually towards what is happening in Afghanistan and Pakistan. It's going to be the cocktail of these 2 countries. Thirdly, let's not be naive. After all, who is calling the shots in Bangladesh? Is the chief, General Waka. He has the handle. Today, the armed forces of Bangladesh have all the judicial powers, and if the army wants to act, they can act. But it suits them to keep the Hindu community in fear of psychosis, because it is the very gradual ethnic cleansing that is taking place, and the army is behind it. That's the state of affairs. My last 2 points. I think first and foremost, as particularly correctly pointed out, not only for Bangladesh, we don't have neighborhood policy for all the neighbors. We don't have policy for China. We are just only, playing event to event, and so also for the other countries. And second point is that soft power doesn't work. You have to talk hard, and hard talk is that we need to tell Bangladesh army chief that our Hindu minority will dig in, will stay on, and we got to give them full support. If we open the floodgates, I can tell you the 8% or something like 12 million Hindus, most of them will be in India, and Bangladesh will be an Islamic state. So all I can say is talk tough, act tough, and give a very clear message to Chief of Bangladesh Army that this will not do anymore. Yunus and all others are just only, front faces. They are puppets. They have no power. The power is with the Bangladesh Army, and today they enjoy all the judicial power and they can act. Mega.
Okay, particularly then, is India's last resort to save the Hindu community in the neighborhood, and particularly in Bangladesh in this instance, is to then use Citizenship Amendment Act to bring back the Hindus that are being persecuted, and is it even a decision that is taken by the Indian government, right? And then are we at this point of time saying that Bangladesh has in fact become an Islamic nation where Hindus and other minorities do not have a place to safely live?
Look, Megha, first and foremost, that is for the government of India to decide what is the best policy forward. I am only saying that we can't have a wait and watch policy forever. Number two, what they are doing to the minorities in Bangladesh, I think they are testing it out on the pretext that they can absorb the pressure from India by keeping Pakistan, China, and now US on their side. That is their theory that they have. Now, it is not just about the persecution of minorities. They are testing how India reacts, because if you look at the messaging and the narrative that are being played out by everybody, most of the people in Bangladesh, they are openly saying that now we will do problem in Northeast. Now we will create problem in Chicken Neck in that Siliguri corridor. They are openly talking about it. So if we continue to I have the highest respect for the government of India. I am only saying that if we don't do something, as General Dwivedi said, doesn't mean that we should go for a war, but we should firmly put our feet down and say that this can't go on. Then they will go to the next step. They are not going to stop me by just stopping the Durga Puja, celebration. They'll go to the next step. So unless you have a policy in place, also, if Bangladesh collapses as an economy, infiltration will continue in India unabated. So we need a national border policy as well. You need to treat the Bangladesh border the same way you treat the Pakistan border. You cannot have that no firing, no open porous border approach that we have with Bangladesh today, because Bangladesh is, whether we like it or not, whether we accept it or not, is almost a de facto Islamic state. Okay, even where moderate Muslims are also not safe. So we need to have a policy and a strategy in place. My first question has been that, do we have a policy? Whether it works or not, whether government of India can do everything or not, that's another issue. But I'm saying that we need to have a policy in place, which somewhere I think a lot of work has to be done. Forget international forum and international community. There's nothing called international community. It's all for their own particular advantage.
Right.
That's the reason Prime Minister talked about reforms in multilateral institutions. When we ask for reforms in multilateral institutions, why are we expecting UN to do anything? It will not.
Okay.
UN will not do. US will not.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Pratin, coming to you, this of course is the political compulsions for the current government to take a stand that is going to be favorable to the larger community, and not to mention it is a number of these Islamist organizations that have now become part of the government under whose orders these actions or inaction from the government side is being seen. Something similar has also played out in India in terms of politics of caste and religion, where one community is pitted against the other. How do we figure out the difference, and how do we fight it?
See, first of all, the world is passing through the most troubled times. I mean, I have been started saying that we are into World War III, only that we don't know, because its structure and contents are completely different. So we will see, and many more mutinies in countries. We are having many things in India, and we are managing so far. So the Bangladesh is, you know, whether you call it Islamis, whether you call Yunus, and all these things, they are simply getting some kind of limited breather, and everyone is trying to make out of that breather. I don't know what is the strategy going forward is, but India has so far taken a little strong stand. If we look at the visa policy, India is not just sitting quietly. It is gauging the situation, and you know that in next couple of months, a lot of things will change. I think it's a very dynamic situation. You just cannot decide right at this moment that what to happen, and so you have to go with the wind and see and act.
Okay.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.